What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Chris Waldron, accountability coach. I wanted to take a quick moment to try a little bit of a different venue, try recording on video. So don't mind me if I keep looking at myself in the actual video because it's new to me. I wanted to take a moment to answer some questions. I'm going to answer one question specifically in this video that I hear a lot from my clients, friends, etc. Entrepreneurs around the world. Everybody struggles with the same issues. So rather than typing it with little context, I'd rather you see my face, hear my tone, and get ultimately my perspective on something that everybody kind of struggles with, and I help people work through day to day. And that's time management, right? Well, it's really prioritization, right? Prioritize and execute, because there is no such thing as time management. We can't manage time. We can only manage what we do and how we prioritize certain things. So to get straight into it, let's put a little scenario out there. You come to me, you come to anybody, you post on a forum, you reach out to friends and you say, everything's chaotic. I have so much to do. All this stuff is going off. What do I do? Where do you start? Well, number one, you stop, right? You stop and you take a nice deep breath and you relax, okay? Because you are not going to solve any issue in the state of chaos that your mind is in, period. You're going to approach old problems with old ways of thinking. The only way to solve problems is to approach old problems with new ways of thinking, and that's what I'm here to give you in a very simple term, as simple as I can get, and as generic as I can get, so that way we can apply this across the board. So what happens if you call me, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, depending on where you live, and you say, you know what, everything's chaotic. I don't know how to manage all these things I've got to do. Well, number one, all of those things you likely don't have to do, right? We do the things that we must do day to day. We don't always do the things that we should do. So you're absolutely going to do the things that you must do day to day. We already know. If you are not focusing on the right things or not prioritizing those things correctly, that absolutely makes sense that your life's chaotic, right? And that you feel like you are constantly doing work, but actually not accomplishing anything, right? So I hear that all the time from almost every client is, hey, I did a lot of work last week, but I got nothing done. It doesn't make sense, right? Or at least it sounds like it doesn't make sense. It does make sense, right? Because busy work is a waste of time. We want to make sure that we are doing the right things that have the biggest impact for our skill sets. So when it comes down to time management, anything that has to get done, you need to make it a must. You need to reframe that into your mind as this thing must get done. And I can guarantee you those things will start getting done, right? Because if we move the needle, or we move the bar over to something must be done, it changes a lot. It doesn't give you an excuse. It doesn't give you an out. All right. So that's number one. That's easy, right? So you go and you take your top priorities. From then on out, it's simple. It's called prioritize and execute, right? So you have one large thing that's going to move the needle. What's that next thing that you've got to do that's going to make the biggest impact, right? And then we look at the rest of our time. We've got all these tasks we got to do. Are these tasks that fit in our individual skill set? Is that something that you can do efficiently that makes sense? If it's not, you need to hire it out. You need to delegate it. You need to decide whether it's on your list for a purpose, or if it's just on there because it would be nice to do. If it's not something that's going to get done, if it's not critical, if it's been on your list for a while, there's a reason you're not doing it, remove it, right? Shelf it, put it in another list if it's something you eventually have to do. But ultimately, you don't want to have a big load or a big task list that has a bunch of junk on it that you're not going to get to, because ultimately it's just going to make you feel bad over time, right? The psychology of having a massive list of things to do is going to overwhelm you before you even start. So let's start taking that stuff that's been sitting on there forever that we're not really, do we really need to do those things, right? Maybe, probably not, especially not if it's been sitting on your list for a month or two. Could somebody else do it? Could somebody else do it that's much more efficient at it than we are? Potentially. Talk to that person, reach out, hire that person. Get those things done and off your list, because we need to ultimately focus in on the things that really matter. And make sure that our days are impactful. So that's a general wrap up, right? And this can be, extremely complex in the way that we look at it, and the way that when I work with clients, we take a deep dive in what's specific to them, but in a generic sense, and what'll work over a broader scope is doing those things first. The other thing I really recommend that you do if you have this problem is for 1 to 2 weeks, track down to every 15 minutes of what you do. Right? So that's a challenge. If you really want to see where your time goes, and if you really want to get a perspective on how you use your time, and if you really have time, track your week, or at least actually 2 weeks, down to every 15 minutes. You can group them or color code them in the sense of the type of work you're doing. So if you're doing project management, if you're doing sales, if you're doing fulfillment work, if you're doing marketing work, you can color block those, but really write out and don't don't lie to yourself, right? So if you're on the internet for 15 minutes and you're supposed to be doing something else, write that in there. If you are digging around on the phone call, to your buddies, or watching TV, or checking in on Netflix or YouTube, or whatever your crutch is, Facebook, social media, write those down. Be true to yourself, because you really want to look back and see, is it time that I'm wasting? Do I have time? Or maybe, and in the case of some of my clients, maybe you're doing somebody else's job. Maybe you're doing work that you're not even good at. And the reason you don't have time is because you're spending so much time trying to learn that thing or trying to figure it out when someone else could have accomplished it for a much lower rate, right? We all have a value on our time. If you're an owner of a company, and your time is valued north of $500 an hour, there's no reason you should be editing a video. There's no reason you should be posting to your social media. Those are things that we can have people that are really in tune with those things do for a very low hourly rate. And we can maximize our time by paying someone else $20 an hour to recover 3 of our hours at $1,500 total, right? So we've spent $60 to recover $1,500. That's a huge net margin. In saying that, you have to be willing to take that time that you saved and actually apply it to something that's useful and that you're good at. So my challenge to you, if you have a problem with chaos, if you have a problem with time management, or really your schedule, or feeling overwhelmed, take a deep breath, start tracking it to every 15 minutes, your schedule for the next 2 weeks. And when that 2 weeks is up, you color code those things that really tie together, so you can visually see it a little easier. But you really analyze what you're doing with your time, right? And we're going to do this between when you wake up to when you go to bed, not just your work hours, right? So do everything, because it's going to be very interesting. And then again, it'll be also interesting when you do it again 3 to 6 months down the road to see how things have evolved and see if you've improved that ultimately. So give it a shot. Let me know how it works for you. If you give it a try, either leave a comment or a reply or whatever. I'd be curious to see, and if you'd like me to review it, absolutely, present that idea. And if I have time in my own schedule, I'll certainly take a look at it for you. Cool? Talk soon.